Howdy, everybody. Welcome back to The Collective. We have another fantastic show for you planned out today, and it's going to be, well, it's fantastic in my mind. So that's we have a whole bunch of stuff going on today, or correction, this month is Men's Mental Health Month. As you all know, we have been doing daily chats about it. The one thing I did want to get across beforehand is none of us are doctors except for this guy, David.
Not that kind of doctor, though.
But it's a different kind of doctor. So anything we do talk about, anything that is all from our personal experience, it's all about how we engage with the world and all these things. If you are feeling agitated, upset, you start to feel that you are getting uncomfortable, by all means, bounce. Hit us back later after you've talked to a friend or a doc or a psych, whoever you need to talk to. That's a big thing. If you have any questions or comments, do hit us up. We read them all, and we will be putting them up here. Speak of the devil. Winterstorm, good morning. Good to see you. And while I am going through my preamble, you should be doing your preamble by liking the channel, subscribing to it, hitting the notification bell, and all that good stuff. Did I miss anything? What do you think, Shaun?
I think that's good.
Nice.
I think you've kind of got your banter down there now at the start of the show, hey?
It seems pretty professional.
It's kind of like got its own groove now.
I have this like mental checklist in my head. It's just like tick, 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 tick. I got to hit all these things before we go too deep into it. Now, Brady and David, you guys are both new to the show, so can you give us a little 30-second hitter as to what who you are, where you come from, all that stuff? And let's start with Dave. I'll put you up first.
Sure. So David Swoboda, I'm technically a doctor of physical therapy, but after spending about a year working in a regular clinic, I hated it and wanted to honestly end my life. So my life took a different turn. I went into started my own business to take care of other jiu-jitsu athletes, still doing the physical therapy route. After a few years of that, I found myself just caring more and more about the mental health than the physical health end of the spectrum. My personal life saw me getting involved more and more in psychedelics, doing ayahuasca. And so I've kind of now embraced this plant medicine mental health path, working with both just general population and getting more and more into working with veterans. And so now I'm working on a new project of these jiu-jitsu retreats that kind of combine every single interest of mine into one. So we've got the world's first plant medicine infused jiu-jitsu camps coming up. And we've got one specifically for veterans coming up in October. So that's what I'm doing.
That's awesome. We'll be getting into that in a little bit. Brady, hit us up.
Well, so my name is Brady Pasola with the Gray Man Project. I run the Gray Man Project here on Instagram, which is a survival strategy adopted by preppers to blend with your environment, but I've taken it a bit further into more of a philosophical approach to not only maintain one's dress discipline, but also behavioral discipline. And then I used to run a nonprofit, started a nonprofit called Triple B Adventures in San Diego, where I took veterans outdoors, hunting, hiking, camping, and fishing every month for the better part of 5 years. And this month I'm running a little campaign on my page to post a video every day on men's mental health.
Yeah, it's awesome. I've been enjoying it quite a bit, just so you know.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
No worries. Now, we're going to be getting into this whole concept of camaraderie in a little bit. But, and the reason I wanted to get into this, because I was saying earlier, you know, I think at least here in Canada, I know in a lot of the states, camps are a normal thing for kids, right? You grow up, you kind of young adult, you get sent to summer camp somewhere, doing something, canoeing, all that good stuff. And I was listening to a podcast at one point, they were talking about why do we stop doing that after, you become a teenager, and then it's just like, no, okay, now you got to be an adult, go and do your adult stuff, instead of staying together or taking trips or grouping up at points in time in life in order to, maintain that camaraderie. Whereas, within the military, we kind of gain that camaraderie from being together, doing those things regularly on exercise and things like that. But I think a lot of the people out there that don't have that lose that concept and lose that feeling of being together. So let's ask this question right off the bat. How do you guys see camaraderie with as adult men? Has that changed at all since you were younger to now? What do you think? Who wants to take this first? I'm going to put
I'll go
Seb on.
first.
Oh, okay, Shaun, you're up.
Thank you. I'm going to go first because I want to establish what camaraderie is before we dive too deeply into it. Is it a French word that refers to cheese or what is it?
It might
You know what I
be.
mean? So let's do that. So camaraderie, this is right off of ChatGPT 4.0, quick cheat. So, and I only typed this in about 90 seconds ago. Camaraderie refers to a strong sense of friendship, mutual trust, and loyalty amongst a group of people who share common interests or experiences. It is characterized by a genuine spirit of cooperation, support, and goodwill, fostering a positive and harmonious atmosphere within the group. Camaraderie often develops in situations where individuals work together, such as in sports teams, military units, workplaces, or other collaborative environments. It involves mutual respect, understanding, and the willingness, etc., etc. So there's lots of things to do with camaraderie. So now that that is in place, I think that all of us have got some past where we have been in environments where camaraderie is key to the success of the group, for sure. I mean, when camaraderie is high, things get done. When camaraderie is low, things go sideways. And so camaraderie is a really integral part of any successful team. So to your question now, Chance, has it changed for me as I've grown older? For sure, it has. And interestingly enough, our panel guests will help demonstrate that right now. So, when I was in the army, I was doing lots of things that challenged me. And then when I left the army, I'd done so many challenging things that not too many things challenged me. And so I had to go find my own challenges, like 24-hour solo mountain bike racing. And through that process, I made friends who were also into doing that kind of stuff. And we formed camaraderie. We formed a team. And it was actually called Forward Momentum Coaching, my company. And so that team, that camaraderie, that was as strong as my military camaraderie when I was in Tier 1. And so guess what's happening right now? The collective.
Mm-hmm.
The camaraderie of the collective is starting to shape up. Now, it's early days, I get it. But the camaraderie is starting to form. I know it because I've experienced it too many times in the past to recognize what's going on right now. It's happening, but it's at a small scale. But here's why it's interesting to me, or this is what I love about the collective. Looking at David and Brady as the example. So not too many things get me mega excited as a grown-ass man at 60. Haven't done a bunch of things. But what does get me excited is stuff that I've never done and never even thought to do. And so what David's got going on right now, I don't know if I'll attend the camp, but here's what I think. Oh, yeah, that's cool. He's put a bunch of things together that are interesting to me and would be challenging to me. Now it's for me to figure out if I've got the juice or the guts or the conviction to go face that new challenge. And so there's not a whole pile of challenges out there in the world that make me think this, ooh, that sounds difficult. And so that's what I love about cool guests coming over to the collective. Brady, as the example, I know nothing about his project, but as soon as he started listing off the things that he's doing, I'm like, oh, yeah, there are people that do those kind of things. And I want to know people like that. And so presto changeo, we have one of the tenets over here is we've got a forming camaraderie occurring, and it's only enriched based on the panel guests that we have, like David and Brady. So, boys, thanks for joining us.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you, Shaun.
Let's put Brady up next then. What is your thoughts on camaraderie?
I've watched camaraderie, I think, firsthand, either in the military or running a nonprofit. And that is, I assume most of us are from the military here, whether it's Canadian or US. And we understand that when we get out the military, we tend to lose that camaraderie. When we're with people that would take a bullet for us. And that's a feeling of love that I don't think most people will ever experience most in their life. And of course, we certainly mourn the loss of that feeling when we get out because our civilian friends, I don't think could ever give us that sense of security and camaraderie that we experience where someone was willing to give a bullet or take a bullet for you. And so when I started the nonprofit Will Be Adventures, I was kind of like the lowest in my life. And I like the outdoors. I like being around my veteran brothers. And so I thought maybe sitting around a campfire with folks would do me some good. And it did. And for the better part of 5 years, every month for 5 years, I sat at a campfire with veterans, different veterans, all sharing, talking about their experiences. And I think it helped reignite that camaraderie because I think it's important. I think we experience that camaraderie. I don't think there's more powerful camaraderie than anyone experienced than having been in the military, because when there's a different feeling of having a friendship, but also, and then there's the feeling that someone truly has your back, that you're entrusting them with your life, and that they that you're willing to give your life for somebody. And that, like I said, that's a level of love and camaraderie I don't think most people experience. And of course, yeah, like I said, we mourn that when we leave. And so we feel a sense of lostness. And so when sitting around a campfire around people, I think having all these diverse veterans, because you'll see veteran nonprofits out there that are like, well, we're like, combat only veterans or combat injured only veterans or special forces veterans. We brought in a diverse amount of veterans just because there was more information, more experience, more knowledge to be passed around the campfire, whether it was an admin pogue or a grunt or a super underwater scuba sniper Jedi like Shaun here.
Yeah.
So we always had different people. We had team guys, we had Delta guys, we had Air Force guys and Coast Guard guys all sitting around the campfire sharing information. And because when we get out, we seek different professional paths. Those professional paths, I think, can be offered, whether it was an Air Force guy that became a senior VP of a major marketing firm, and, a team guy that was just turned into a Blackwater contractor, right? There's knowledge to be shared. And so that camaraderie, I think, reignites a fire, reignites that passion, that feeling of love. Because that's what camaraderie is. It's love. It's love for your fellow man. And sometimes we need to be reminded of that through activities, through camps, through adversity. And especially it's through adversity that we've established these really hardcore bonds that, of course, we mourn when we lose them.
Yeah. Great point. Seb or David, you guys want to jump in?
Yeah, I'll
Go ahead, Dave.
So I guess I'm the only guy here actually without any military service. Probably one of the few people who's ever come on this show, maybe without military service.
no.
We've
But you
had
got a
quite
good
few.
haircut, pal.
You got the right haircut. Yeah.
I know. I'm trying to blend in. I was telling Seb, I fight the urge
As
to
per
say
the gray
Roger
man
now when I'm
blend
talking
in,
to
you
Seb.
know?
Yeah,
Gray
exactly.
man AF.
But because of that, I don't think I really experienced any level of the camaraderie that you guys are talking about until I started training jujitsu. And coming from like a medical background, one of the things that we learned about in school is that one of the biggest predictors of early death, specifically for men, is not like heart disease, it's not diabetes, it's actually the level of loneliness that they feel. So the number of friends that you have, the number of close friends, is actually a good predictor of how long you're going to live. And I think it's not a stretch to say that we live in a pretty sick society. Especially young men have a lot of problems understanding their role in the world, understanding what their role in the world should be. And I think a lack of camaraderie only compounds that. And so to me, that's why I'm so passionate about spreading the good gospel of jujitsu and getting everyone who I ever talk to interested in it, is because I know how much good it's done for me in providing me that camaraderie, providing me those friends. And that friendship can now cross any border that I cross. So I moved to Mexico and I started training jujitsu, and immediately I have 10 friends because I walk into the academy, I slap bump, we roll, and we're friends now. It's just how it goes. And Shaun, something that you said, that you found camaraderie with your team, with your new adventure, that was as strong as anything you experienced in the service. That's actually it's really encouraging to me, because one of the things that I'm so passionate about now is helping veterans navigate this transition out of their service and into regular life. Brady, you mentioned, working with a diverse group of people in your organization. I like to think that as a civilian myself, I actually bring a unique perspective to how does a veteran go from a serviceman to a civilian again. Not that you're ever just a civilian, but you're entering civilian life. And if I can use jujitsu and I can use everything that I do with the plant medicine end of things to, rekindle that fire of camaraderie that people have lost, that's really encouraging to me. And that's part of what I'm trying to do with these jujitsu camps. It's part of what I do with the plant medicine work. And it's encouraging to hear that I can have that role, or that I can play that role without having any military background myself.
I'll guarantee you that you can, and that's guaranteed, written in my own blood for sure. And here's how I know that to be true. I've just seen it happen too many times. Just people that I've been involved with that are awesome people who never served a minute in the military, that I've worked with on my own racing team. And they've gone on to do amazing things within their own sub team, if you want to call it, that I'll give nods to every day of the week. And again, they've never worn cam paint, but they have kicked ass in a way that I approve of, because they learn how to kick ass through meeting people like me, or people like any of the people on this panel for that matter. And so I believe, well, I'm going to speak for myself. I believe that any platform, whether it's BJJ, mountain bike racing, the military, learning how to climb a mountain, whatever. It doesn't matter what the platform is. You're stepping onto a neutral thing. The BJJ mat is neutral. A mountain bike race is neutral. It's for us to figure out how we fit into that neutrality, and then it's for us to get comfortable in that neutrality. Your camp that you're going to have in October, if I went to it, it would be my job to enter into that neutral space and let it shape me, and rather than me going in there to shape it. And that's where I've found a lot of the struggles for veterans. And this is specifically for you, David, not for the entire interwebs, though it's equally as applicable to the entire interwebs. As a veteran, a long time ago, if someone would have said, do you want to go to this camp and it'll do X, Y, and Z? Do you want to go to this campfire and you'll be talking about X, Y, and Z? I would have said no, because I didn't think that it had anything to offer me. I wasn't stepping into it with a neutral mindset, with the understanding that I have now of everything is a neutral playing field for me to shape. And that shaping is done by me allowing it to shape me. So it's a weird sort of thing, at least for me as a veteran, that I want to go in and control it, but it actually has to control me. And it's my job to figure out that interplay between the two. Now, your job, David, in these kind of camps, or in the things that you're trying to do, is how to let those two things happen. Let the veteran run their own little program to some degree, while you're shaping the program for them, whether they know it or not. And that's you got to decide, do you have the conversation with them and say, bro, you're running the program, or bro, I'm running the program, or bro, we're running the program together. Because there's a person out there for every one of those three different conversations, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. It's also part of the reason why I'm not doing this by myself, but I'm bringing in Seb to be the actual jiu-jitsu instructor.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and I think that that's really critical, of course, because any veteran who gets involved with any neutral platform, BJJ, racing, whatever the case is, like if a veteran came up to me and said, Shaun, I want to become a world champion in 24-hour solo mountain bike racing, they're right away going to give me the respect, because they know my background. And Absolutely. same for another veteran. They're going to step onto that neutral mat and they're going to give Seb the respect that he deserves. And Seb's shaking his head, but this is how veterans work. They're going to give Seb the respect that he deserves. And through that proxy, you're going to get the respect that you deserve, because you are aligned with Seb. And so it's not just us that people view ourselves as, it's who we associate with that we're viewed as. So that's why I like to have good friends like Seb.
Absolutely.
Speaking of Seb, We haven't heard from him yet this morning. So, what are your thoughts on camaraderie?
Hey man, I don't have to hear the sound of my own voice.
But we do. We like the sultry sound of Seb's voice.
Sure.
The accent gets me.
Yeah.
So just to go with, sort of not pushing back per se, but just about what Shaun just said there. For me, the opportunity I see between myself and David is to earn that respect through our actions, right? And so for me, I would never, and I know that that's not what Shaun meant, obviously, but I would never expect respect on account of X, Y, and Z that I so-called accomplish or whatever the case may be. I, as a human being, have a role to play in getting that respect everywhere I go, but do so not forcefully, do so by my actions and get the benefits out of that. So now that that's out of the way, just wanted to talk about something really interesting that came up, and I think I'll do a lot of that today because we have such strong guests. But the concept of having experienced a level of camaraderie where somebody will effectively take a bullet for you, and we as people that have done this in the field, we associate this with sort of the ultimate support mechanism, so to speak, or the ultimate in loyalty. But what you are soon to realize, and I've seen this, when I went through my catastrophic injury or other people going through some hardships, and what you see is the sometimes, not always, but sometimes the people that will take a bullet for you will not be there if you going through a breakup, for example, because that really destabilizes them and they don't know what to do. It's not that they necessarily don't want to be there, but they may not. And so the person that, quote unquote, has never trained to take a bullet for anybody else might be the best person to be there to support in certain instances. So I think what happens, and this is what humans do, and we all do it to a certain extent, if you're not in our circle, you don't know, and you can't be, your value is diminished. And I think that's that sort of group-centric, counterproductive sort of thought process. I'm trying to sort of step away from that as much as I can, because if you're looking at different units through different organizations and everybody's the best, but nobody else is working, it's almost like there is, and it's cool because it creates that competitiveness and it creates high performance in those various units, but it also creates a bit of a toxic, and it can create a bit of a toxic culture if you take members out of that unit and you send them somewhere else. So anyways, the point I'm making is, don't necessarily associate people that would have taken a bullet for you for them being there when life struggles are hitting you in a different way, and vice versa. Anyways, but yeah, the concept of camaraderie is obviously, having, and if we haven't spoken about shared adversity within that camaraderie. So you have that, and now you start sharing adversity, you deepen bonds between humans, you build trust, you enhance resilience, you promote cooperation and relationship and interpersonal relationship, you encourage communication, healthy communication, and it's very, very difficult to get outside of those circles, because very, very rarely are people themselves, unless adversity is imposed upon them, and eventually they start becoming who they are. It's easy to have a mask, until then. And so I, like everybody else on this panel, consistently seek a shared adversity, which is constructive, and a group to do it with. Who are my battle buddies, and where are we going?
Mm-hmm. I like that. Anybody got thoughts on that?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah,
real quick.
by all means.
So that's why I like the idea of entering into a neutral platform. We'll call it the BJJ mats, and adversity is about to occur right then, that day. And that's an important distinction. And I'm not saying one is better than the other. They're just two different approaches. Adversity that day versus everyone meeting at a location that day, sitting around in a circle and talking about the past.
Yeah.
The past is the past, and we've all got to process it. And usually that's best done internally through our self-identity. Then once we've self-identified who we are and what we're all about and what we need to work on and what we're doing well with, then we step into their identified group, whatever that identified group is. We talked about this in self-identity and self-worth. And so who I am, or what I think I am, is a thought construct. But then when I step into that neutral platform of the BJJ mat or whatever the case is, now I get to work that moment through some adversity and start to better understand not only myself, but the group around me. I get the campfire moment. I've been there many a time and I really enjoy it. I'm not saying one is better than the other, but the campfire moment is a moment reserved for talking about the past. It's rarely about the future or about the present. And so, again, you need both. And one is not better than the other, but you can't just rely on one.
That goes into what we were talking about the other day, is that you can't define yourself through one thing.
One-dimensional.
Right? Mm-hmm. Can't be one-dimensional. It's not just the uniform. It's not just the mats. It's not just the whatever. It's everything. Brady or David, you got any thoughts?
I got a lot of thoughts, but they're going to stray potentially from the topic of camaraderie if I dive into everything that we discussed.
What do you got?
We'll save that for another time.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Just going off what you guys were mentioning on identity, and I know you did an entire topic on this, so I don't want to beat this, but in what I've seen so far of the guys that I've worked with to help them work through some of their issues, everything stems back to how fixed is the identity, like how fixed is the story that people tell themselves about who they are. And it's really interesting now, having done this with a number of people, watching it play out from when I first meet them to then going through working with plant medicine to who they are on the other side. And it's almost as if when you first meet someone who's struggling with these things, you can almost hear when they talk about themselves that they've said whatever line 1,000 times before. I was on a call with a guy this morning who's going to come to Peru with us in a few months. And he mentioned not being able to sleep in the last 27 years. And just the way that he said it as he was introducing himself, I know that he's said that as he's introduced himself 1,000 times before to everyone else who he's met. And I saw that with this guy, Toby, who we took to Peru earlier. Just the same thing. It's almost this rote thing that they say about themselves. And they're not even probably noticing that they do it, but it's just become an ingrained part of who they are, this struggle that they have. And if there's anything that I do to help these people, it's unrooting that stuck story and helping them to replace it with something new, something that they actually choose to author for themselves instead of something that's just been ingrained and wrote over the course of their life. So yeah, not camaraderie based, but I wanted to throw that in there.
Super legit.
I think that actually is camaraderie based, at least in my mind. And I was actually going to ask this question to Brady here in a second, was the fact that it's up to the group to hold accountable those inside the group. But that's a part of camaraderie, because you can't just do that with anybody, right? Like you can't just walk up to somebody on the street and be like, I'm going to hold you accountable right now in this particular moment about something. You just can't, right?
Unless you're Shaun.
Unless you're Shaun, of course.
Unless you've irritated me.
But one of the things I wanted to ask Brady specifically, you've been doing the Gray Man Project for, say 18 days now, 19 days now, or not the Gray Man Project, but the daily chats. And I'm wondering if that has changed at all the way you look at being held accountable within the group, or holding those in that are joining your group accountable as a way of building that camaraderie.
Well, I did talk about Brotherhood in one of them, and how important Brotherhood is to have as men. We're often find ourselves kind of like alone in the field somewhere, I feel sometimes, depending on whether it's our occupation, our politics, our thoughts, our experiences and things like that. So I think it's important to find a brotherhood. And I'll make a mention that I recently did join Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu about 2-3 weeks ago. Awesome. And it's been a nice bitter piece of humble pie to eat every single day.
Yeah. Add a little bit of extra salt on that.
In my profession as a personal security professional, of course, I've gone through courses and different things like that on kinetic hand-to-hand stuff like that. But when you get some guy that's 6'4" and cradles you like a fucking baby, cradles you like a baby.
That's one.
When you get
Dude,
a guy
don't make that choke you out.
Yeah. When you get a guy that is 6'4" and cradles you like a baby, It's the most emasculating, humble pie moment you'll ever feel in your entire life. And I'm 6'1", at least 220 pounds. I was like, there's no way this is happening right now. But when it comes to the day 18, and today I'm going to talk about a man's ability to reach out and ask for help. And I've written the script out because I have severe ADHD, so I have to write everything out. Otherwise, I go on forever, as you can see. I have noticed a change in myself when I'm talking about these things, because more often than not, I'll tell people that when I'm giving these videos, it's not just talking to people. I'm talking to myself with an audience, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
It does. I do it every day.
So, yeah. And so I'm starting to see camaraderie. I'm starting to see people that are resharing these, that are feeling the same, that are reaching out and saying, hey, thank you. This hit where it was supposed to hit, and it gave me a little bit of different perspective today. I've also shared it with a lot of big name accounts that follow me, but I see I'm left unseen quite often, which is funny because these are the same people that share out their own personal message of men's mental health. So interesting enough. But that being said, I am seeing people come out and say thank you. And there's, people with smaller accounts, even if it's 100 people, they'll tag me in a video that they made regarding men's mental health, because I think all of us men have experienced, deep mental issues, whether at one point in our life or others. And so we've all forged a tool or two in the fire of adversity, of that moment that we can pass on to people. And I think it's important for men to be able to take that tool and say, hey, look, this is my tool. It's the one tool I got. I forged it in my adversity, but I would like to give it to you to help you. And so I think that's where it's really important when it comes to this month and comes to this brotherhood, this idea of camaraderie, is that we're passing tools around to help each other out, to kind of find our own way through our own adversity. And adversity is a gift. We shouldn't see adversity as a terrible thing. It's a gift. And when you unwrap the gift, you're going to find resilience, character development, and self-reliance.
I agree. And so as part of a evolving phenomenon here in Canada, through mentel.ca and through the collective, of course, we're really pushing Men's Mental Health Month this June, unlike it's ever been pushed ever in history in Canada.
Yeah.
It's never been pushed this hard that I know of. Anyone else think it's been pushed harder in the past? And I know that there were some organizations that were starting to make an effort for men's mental health about a day before the month kicked off. They made one effort, and that was it, one and done. And it was a lightweight effort that this year's campaign, through a bunch of big talking heads, decided that they wanted to go with hashtag Park Like a Dad. Hashtag
yeah, you heard that
like
right, Brady.
Dad. You see me freaking out right now, and that's why we're doing Men's Mental Health Month here on the collective, baby.
You might have to explain it again to Brady.
Hashtag Park
What
Like
does
a
that
Dad.
even mean?
That's right. What does it even mean? And what it was supposed to represent is, in order to improve men's mental health, instead of parking right next to the train station, park a few parking stalls over so that you walk a little further today to improve your mental health. And I was like, is this even happening right now? Who on earth?
I'm cured.
Right.
yeah, right.
And so it was
cured.
so
Thank you.
weak. It was so off base. It was actually insulting.
Is this from the Canadian government? Is that like an official
No, it
thing?
was I'm going to call it out. It was the Canadian Mental Health Association, an association out on the left coast in Vancouver, with a bunch of big name hockey players and whatever. Everyone like waving the flag for a minute, and then hashtag Park Like a Dad.
Yeah.
And so
mission accomplished.
It was nuts, man. And what I didn't appreciate the most is someone like putting out a hashtag like that as a national campaign. And that refers to me. Like what? Now I park like a dad? I've never thought that. And so how on earth does that represent me and the friends that I've got who are trying to improve their mental health? So I had my little 30-second mind exploded. And then I thought that this is going to change. And so this is what I'm trying to do over here this month, as we're all trying to do this month, is get away from park like a dad. And today's subject being camaraderie. When I look at the reference to military versus non-military, the words that I stated at the start of the definition of camaraderie still stands, and that is a strong sense of friendship, mutual trust, and loyalty amongst a group of people who share common interests or experiences. And adversity, the adversity of anything, is what will draw people together. And let me make the comparison. With a bunch of people currently serving in the military, you can put them in a platoon room, and if they face no adversity in their career trade, like, where's the camaraderie, man? Because they're not facing any adversity ever, or that week, or that month, or that year. And so how do common bonds form if you show up at work and then you leave work? And in between those two moments, not a lot of adversity is faced. Whereas if you leave the military thinking that that's what camaraderie is all about, and you step onto a BJJ mat, in about a month, you'll understand what camaraderie means, because you're all sharing adversity, a common adversity, which is lacking in some military trades, is lacking in some military careers. So to make, again, the comparison, and it's a crude comparison, as a veteran, if you think you understand camaraderie, well, maybe you do, but maybe you don't. How you can better understand it is to contextualize it against something that for sure will create camaraderie, like BJJ.
Shaun, you've if I can cut in for a second, you've talked like around this topic with everything you've said of it's an idea in Zen Buddhism of the beginner's mind. And Brady, I know you're into Stoicism. I don't know if your reading has ever branched into that, but everything you just described, Shaun, was coming from a place of assuming that you don't know everything, basically. And Seb, I'm sure you're nodding your head. You're all about the humility when it comes to the jiu-jitsu and everything. And I think that that's part of what jiu-jitsu gives you, as Brady probably experienced that first day, like assuming that you can handle yourself, assuming that you can fight, and then being manhandled by somebody else. You're like, oh, I really don't know much about this. And jiu-jitsu, or any other form of adversity, I think part of the magic there is that it forces you into that state of the beginner's mind. If you are so inflexible mentally that you can't get there, you're going to quit, or you're going to have a hard time, or you're not going to like it. So I think that that's part of the magic. Yeah, exactly. So Shaun, what you said of needing this shared adversity, I think that that's part of what the adversity does, is that it shifts you into that beginner's mindset. And tying it back to the camaraderie angle, like Brady, you said your topic today is about how to reach out for help, or how men can reach out for help. And you're basically sharing your own story to this audience. If someone looks at you and they idolize you, they look up to you, they've been following your stuff for a while, and now they see that you're talking about reaching out for help, maybe they're not going to reach out in the same way. Maybe they're not going to take the same tools that you're taking, but they're seeing, here's someone else doing something, and I guess I can do that too. I thought that I had to be perfect. Like, I thought I was this, hardcore military guy, but here's someone that I look up to and he's reaching out for help. That means that I can do that as well. And that's what we experience in jiu-jitsu. That's what we experience in any level of adversity, is here's someone else making this thing happen. I can make that happen too.
Yeah.
And if you don't mind, I'd just like to add one more layer to that, because that's an excellent comment, David. Thank you. And it is, adopt a beginner mindset, but not just one and done. I'm in my 7th freaking career podcasting, radically different career, not like 7 careers that are all the same career. I'm talking about radically different. And so when I stepped onto the BJJ mats for the first time, it was my 52nd birthday to tie on. And the reason I did it was because I just wanted a new white belt. I wanted a new beginner mindset. And that's how I've run my life. I enter into something like a beginner and I want to crush it. And while I'm crushing that, I'm looking for a new white belt that I can then tie on and crush that. I've got all kinds of white belts on at the moment, and some blues and some purples and some browns and some blacks. But that's the way I've run my life, is chasing the beginner mindset always.
I like that.
That's beautiful. Chance, you started this out talking about how like nowadays people don't have, or as an adult, you don't have opportunities for camaraderie. You talked about as kids, you go to a summer camp, but we don't really have that as adults. I talk about this often with jujitsu, that how often does an adult try something completely new that they are terrible at? So Shaun, I love what you just said of I'm looking for more white belts to put on. I'm going to start thinking about that more often. What else can I be a white belt at?
Yeah.
Right
Shaun
on.
says it quite often here. Just tie on a new white belt. Just tie on a new white belt. It's it's a great concept to live your, and it's the state of no mind. It's the flow like water. It's the ability to just enter into something and go, oh, and be curious. My doc always says that to me. Just be curious. Just be curious. And I had a really hard time, like scratch my head with that for a long time. Just be curious. And it took me a while to actually kind of come forward to realize that it was not so much about the word, obviously, which was my brain was catching on, but more about the feeling of just wondering what's over that hill. I'm going to go check out what's over that hill. And when it comes to camaraderie, I've heard so many people say it's so hard to make friends as an adult. You have to actually try. They're not just going to appear beside you and be like, hey, you want to be friends like they used to do in grade school. You have to actually go and do stuff, and you have to get into new areas. And you have to be able to talk to people, and that's part of the difficulty. And Brady, you were talking about getting manhandled by a giant man on the BJJ mats. I got tied in knots by a 16-year-old girl. So, like, you want to talk humility, man? Oh boy, and I am not a little dude. But that's why it's so great. It is a bitter piece of humble pie that is kind of, well, it's electively taken, but then shoved down your throat. Right?
If you don't mind, there's just two words that
absolutely.
I want to clear up pedantically, but I think it's important. So
Absolutely.
you'd said curious.
Yes.
People are encouraging people to be more curious. Well, I want to change that word to adventurous.
Sure.
Because curiosity, if you're told to go be curious about life, curiosity can be almost passive. It can be kind of like half-assing it. It can kind of be like, I'll take my time maybe thinking about, I wonder what's over there. The moment you change that word to adventurous, you're like tying on your boots, man, and you're heading straight to the horizon. You're climbing up a tree and standing at the top of the tree looking around. You're swinging off a branch. You're digging a hole. You're doing whatever. You're getting your freak on. To me, that's what adventurous is. And if you want to really move the needle, change the word curiosity to adventurous.
I like that. Brady or Seb, got any thoughts?
Just I'd like to jump in for a sec with some of the stuff that Brady has said earlier, which I think kind of floated under and but was extremely powerful, and I think is the way forward for us. What we are seeing, and I think I can relate to what Brady was saying in relation to trying to make a difference and trying to be a positive driving force and providing some tools and helping everybody along the way, so other people doing the same thing, so essentially people pulling in the same direction, and we are all helping each other by having each other on each other's platform, by bringing each other's messages without fear of threats of, if I post something that Brady was bang on today, does that take away from me and my ability to articulate the same thing, or does that take away from me as a person? And I think what we are seeing for the first time in potentially mankind history is we're actually working together, and we're seeing this here in Canada, where all the people that are pulling in the same direction are starting to recognize each other and help each other out. We're elevating the game. So we need to stop worrying about, if I repost Brady's chat this morning, am I losing followers, or is Brady getting an extra 100,000? You can't, who cares? It's all about, do you believe that this is in line with what it is that you are doing? And if the answer is yes, then that synergy needs to apply. Go ahead, grab it, put it on your wall. I don't care if you have 1 million followers or if you have one. but then have the person sort of, if we return the favor, and it's not that you are doing it to get a favor in return, but if we're looking out for each other, and when validity shows up, we take it and we give it the platform that it needs to have, we start now really putting all our sort of our eggs, pulling in the same direction, basically is what I'm trying to say. We're lining up all the horses and pulling in the same freaking direction, instead of, I'm going to recreate the wheel here and have this side conversation, which is completely opposite to what this other guy is saying. And yes, we need individuality of thoughts, but also the mission and the end goal and the mission X has to be similar, so that we actually can accomplish anything, because otherwise we're just spilling in circles.
100%.
One of the things that I try to do, from not always, it's not my de facto program. It's a randomized program, but it's something that I observe as an active observation subroutine. And so what I try to do from time to time is not demonstrate, but just put out something that I consider in my brain to be showing a higher intellectual order, or demonstrating that there's someone out there who's thinking like mega. And like, where's the harm in that? I challenge myself to put out stuff that is like quadruple my ability in my little peanut. I love it, man. I love demonstrating the levels to the game. Even if I'm level 3 and they're level 1 million, it's awesome to me. It's that classic video of humans can do this. You can jump that high, you can fly that far, you can swim that long. I love that stuff, man. So I try to do it on social media, not the freak stuff, just the like barely capable stuff of other humans. But I like putting that stuff out there from time to time.
But the reason why you can do that is because your own self-identity or self-worth isn't being questioned every time you do that. And so you need a certain level of self-confidence to do that.
True.
And I think that's where, and again, to Brady's word earlier about ego, that is your ego flaring up. And if your ego isn't going to miraculously keep itself in check, like you are going to have to do that. You are going to have to take that step. And that is a willful decision. Don't act like you're a victim of your ego taking over, And so as we're progressing to build this camaraderie and bring people together and really, set the tone for what men wellness should be, that's one of the key pieces that are going to have to be addressed.
Mm-hmm. Brady?
One thing I do want to bring up is when those of us that are ready to start looking for friendships, those bonds, those mentorships, the groups, the mentorship groups, things like that. I think it's important that it comes from a place of confidence first, at least a little bit of confidence. And the reason why I say that is because if you are a very insecure person, you're going to choose your relationships based on your need for human interaction versus the desire versus wanting human interaction, right? So the moment you begin to start loving yourself and finding yourself, and I know it's that age-old, hippies, hug trees kind of stuff, but really loving yourself gives you the confidence to be able to pick and choose the associations that you align with versus, oh, I need to hang out with people. Because when you feel that need, you're gonna choose people that are generally not going to be good people. They're going to be narcissists or sociopaths or just people that are going to get you into trouble. And if you don't have a level of self-confidence or love to be able to step away from those people, you're going to get yourself into trouble. So what I tell people is learn to embrace solitude first. And there's a difference between loneliness and solitude. Solitude is where you find strength in yourself and understand that you are content in the presence of yourself. So that way, when you decide to want to walk away from relationships or walk away from friendships, that you don't feel so insecure about it, that you're able to walk away because you recognize that it's poisonous for you. It's poisoning your mind. It's ruining your mental health. And so in order to really pick and choose, whether it was deciding to go into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for me, right? Because I'm here in the mountains by myself. I had a great network when I was down in San Diego, but I moved to the mountains. And so finding a network of like-minded individuals, I thought, well, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is actually a way to go, because of course it does demonstrate that adversity. It does demonstrate that camaraderie, that brotherhood, as well as great leadership, even with guys younger than me who know I'm old, fat, and they let me
we
still
didn't
work the
know, but
movement of
now
the day.
we know.
Yeah. They still let me work the movement of the day, you know, and let me get it in there, get the reps in there, develop that that procedural memory to do that. But do not be afraid of solitude. It's from a place of solitude that you begin to pick and choose relationships that are healthy for you as men, that are productive, that are, um, you know, building for you. That at least if this association doesn't work for you, then you're able to step away and be like, well, I am happy by myself. I am content with present myself. I pick and choose relationships. And that goes for women as well, and men, especially when it comes to romantic relationships, and making sure that you're not so eager for human interaction that you just pick some old rando off the street and end up in a really bad situation. But we need to remember that first and foremost, before we can be good to people around us, we need to be good for ourselves first. We need to improve ourselves first, improve our mindset, and improve how we think of ourselves, either, you know, through self-confidence, self-love. And that comes from within. No one can give you confidence. You have to find it yourself. People can say nice things to you that help build your confidence, but at the end of the day, you have to build it yourself.
100%. And that is the mic drop of the day. Thanks very much, Brady.
First one? Come on, he's dropped a few.
There's been quite a few so far. I'm keeping track of them all here, but that was a pretty solid one. Do you have some more thoughts?
I do need to clear this up because we haven't
means.
talked about it, but it's absolutely relevant to the camaraderie piece. There's a positive side and there's a negative side.
Good point.
And so let me just reread this little piece again. Camaraderie refers to a strong sense of friendship, mutual trust, and loyalty amongst a group of people who share common interests or experiences. How about the gang that sucks?
Yeah.
How about the Darth Vaders of the world? How about the crews that camaraderie around negativity? Yelling at the clouds, being jerks. How about that camaraderie? Well, I see three camps. I see camaraderie like this, that we've got going on in here. I see the Darth Vader camp, and then I see kind of like a nebulous gray area of people trying to figure out which camp do they want to be in, or how do I do this better, or how do I do this worse? And they're kind of lost. Not lost in their lives, maybe lost in their minds, maybe lost in themselves. Whatever it is, they don't know which way to go. And so what I've seen recently is a camp of camaraderie that is negative, that is kind of looking around, trying to find a better way. And some of them have contacted me, and I've tried to show them a better way. And they're interested. They're looking to step into a camaraderie group that is doing it better than how they're doing it right now. And they recognize it within themselves. So it's for us as a organization of camaraderie, like-minded individuals that are working on positivity, to encourage the camaraderie that's going on in a group of negative-minded direction to come and join us over here in the fun camp, where we're all having fun. And that bridge is where I'm trying to work on right now, is in that nebulous gray area of bad camaraderie, good camaraderie, no camaraderie. There's a area there that there's literally no camaraderie, just people wandering around looking to connect to one camp or the other. Does that make sense?
Yeah, fulfilling the need for belonging is very different than pulling in the same direction on a shared and common goal. And so,
yeah,
I often see people try and associate. I talk a lot about social independence at the Gray Man Project, and what I mean by social independence is being able to step away from the hive mind, because you talked about bad camaraderie, and oftentimes the hive mind can offer very bad advice, very bad type of human behavior, where people need to separate themselves from it because it's harming them, it's harming your society. There are people that within certain social groups, religious groups, ethnic groups, racial, gender, all these different types of subgroups, everyone has these groups. And unfortunately, sometimes within those groups, you have a lot of toxic behavior that people just kind of nod to because they're afraid to not step up, to not say something. And so they just go along with a hive mind for fear of social rejection. And that comes from an evolutionary history of where if we didn't go along with the tribe, we were exiled, and exiled meant certain death. But as our civilization has gotten a little further, exile doesn't mean certain death. And of course, we do experience social exile from time to time when someone doesn't, say something that aligns with a hive mind. But again, that's where integrity comes into play and self-confidence to say, you know what, I don't like this negative camaraderie. I don't like what you guys are preaching. I don't like what you guys are talking about. I'm stepping out. And you have to accept that you will be mocked. You'll accept that you'll be a pariah. But it takes self-love and self-confidence to be able to step away from that, as well as integrity to say, I'm going to take power away from the hive mind because I'm going to choose social independence versus social acceptance because I don't feel this is right and this is not good for me. Mm-hmm. And I encourage people to embrace solitude, embrace stepping away from camaraderie if it's bad for you. Just because the more people step away from the hive mind, the less power it has, and the more, and it's not being antisocial. It's actually giving love to society, because as you watch these hive minds take down society and hurt society, the more you step away from it, the better society is by reducing that power of the hive mind and reducing that level of bad camaraderie like Shaun had talked about. But that does come from a place of self-love and confidence and no short amount of integrity.
Mm-hmm. And belief that you can do it. So you the words that you just said, pal, are the words that I wish I would have said, but also to include and believe that it's possible.
Yeah. That's a key portion of it for sure. Any more thoughts? I got a couple of comments I want to hit, and then we can do some final thoughts. But any other things boiling up on top of the head? Good. We actually did a conversation a couple of months ago, back in March, on the mob and the philosopher, and the whole concept of being able to actually lift your head up out of the mob and look around, just as a start, and then it carrying on from there. We also talked about being the stag, right? Separating yourself from the herd, but still being close enough that you can guide the herd back and forth. So it's a great concept. Now, we do have a couple quick comments I wanted to hit on real quick. Daniel Labonte says, WTF, bark like a dad. And he says, hashtag loser publicity, which is exactly it. That sparked this whole thing. Now, Tanya says, BJJ is very relational. To be a beginner while doing something dangerous with another person fast tracks trust and camaraderie. Most folks aren't like this panel. We don't experience our narratives/limits being broken down by trained instructors. Dying with guidance equals growth. That's a great point. Winterstorm says, when we support and stand up for each other, we all stand collectively taller. Well, yeah, if you guys are standing on my shoulders, you guys are going to be way taller.
Dude, 47 feet tall.
And then Winterstorm again says, especially when we amplify each other's messages and ideas without ego. This is, I wanted to make this point a little bit ago, was the fact that language is very important. I remember many years stating this exact line: I'm going to steal that when someone says something smart, right? And that language is not accurate. It's not about stealing. It's about passing it on. It's about sharing versus stealing.
Nicely done, Chance Burles.
Yeah, there you go. But the language is very important. That's why sometimes we can get pedantic with it, but it is 100% accurate that we need to be clear and concise with how we deliver the message, because it means something. Now I'm going to go down the line. Any final thoughts? Let's start with Dave.
No, I mean, I think Brady earned a second mic drop with that last tangent he went on. Yeah. Not tangent, but to your point of language being so important, the language with which we speak about ourselves is pivotally important to how your entire life is going to pan out. The beliefs that you hold about yourself, the way that you speak about yourself is everything. And what Brady said about self-love, I think that's everything. Any positive change that you are going to enact in society starts from a place of loving yourself. If you love yourself, you don't need the validation of others. If you love yourself, you don't need to buy a million products to fill a void in your life. if you love yourself, you can choose to spend time with other people who are moving in a positive direction. So to me, it all comes back to that. It comes back to how we speak about ourselves, how we feel about ourselves. And ideally, you're surrounding yourself with other folks who are encouraging that to be positive and who are doing that as well for themselves.
100%. Seb, final thoughts?
Yeah, and the concept of self-love is very important. It has to be grounded in reality, though, and that's a piece that's important. So what I mean by that is you need to have taken actions so that you are the person that you love, not the image of the person or an image, and you're not exactly what you are, but you're in love with your image. You're not in love with what you are actually viscerally or at the core. And so it's important that this concept become the end goal of the mission, but your mission execution is to take actions that are going to make you the person that you want to be, not imagining and giving yourself a dopamine hit on the imagination of what you think you are, if that makes any sense.
100%. Brady, final thoughts?
Just to build off what Seb said, is you got to love the process of building. I try and tell people that every day you wake up, you have a chance to go to bed a better person than when you woke up, whether it's an extra push-up, whether it's something that you said nice to somebody. Try and live within the Stoic virtues of wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. Is constantly building yourself up. He's, like Seb said, don't love the image of yourself, but you should. In order to love yourself, you have to love the process of you getting to be better. And this month is about us men being better men, because in order for us to be better for everyone else, it starts with us. Like he said, you can't expect people to accept you if you can't accept yourself. You can't expect them to love you if you don't love yourself. And so we men are trying to be better, not just for ourselves, but for the people around us, because when it comes to men and women, we're teammates in this life. We are absolutely teammates. This month isn't about being anti-women. It's about being pro bettering ourselves as men, so we can better for those that we love, that love us. And so I really truly encourage people to continue focusing on their mental health, whether it's a man or woman, because you can't be good to other people until you're good to yourself.
100%. Shaun, final thoughts?
And to build off of Brady, who built off of etc., I will say this, that keep adding a little step to your journey of life. And that step should be adventurous, not just curious. It should be adventurous. And by adventurous, I mean, now to David's point, over 20 years ago, I was wearing all kinds of adventurous hats. And I just decided that I would fly to Peru and I would bang around the country doing some things. And by the way, I would also take San Pedro and ayahuasca. And so when I was doing that, that was not cool. Now it's cool.
Yep.
But it's become cool because people are spinning it the wrong way. Don't spin it the wrong way. Adventure is good, but don't turn adventure into a commercial. Just go adventure and see where it takes you. And if you do adventure to Peru or you do adventure to Mexico, where David's going to be hanging out, don't treat it like a Super Bowl moment. It's an adventure, just one more step in your life that helps you understand that maybe you're aggressively pursuing betterment, or whatever word you want to use. But I don't think it's enough to just be simply curious. You've got to chase life.
100%. It is a life should be an adventure, right? Life should be an adventure. If it's not, I would question whether you're doing it right, at least in my mind. And again, I'm only coming at this from just recently starting my adventure as an adventurous spirit, I guess. Let's put it that way. But thank you all for the conversation, David and Brady. Welcome to the collective. I hope to have you guys on here more often. It's going to be a lot of great conversations, as long as I can figure out how to use my tongue. It's interesting, but as long as we're all out there learning how to love ourselves, that means we can build our community around us and we can grow into a awesome camaraderie with each other. So you can do that here with us on the collective every day. See y'all tomorrow. Chimo.